I would reckon 90% of the comments that I get on the videos I'm asking, or well over half, that's an exaggeration. People ask, what temperature are you, what airflow, what stencil are you using? And I wanted to make a short dedicated video on why this question kind of concerns me. I think it's one of those things where, like, if you're asking the question, you maybe shouldn't be doing whatever you're about to do. With practice and time, you'll learn what stuff is appropriate. Or there's just kind of general videos on like basic soldering technique. If you're doing open-ended troubleshooting on, modern computers and phones, you should already kind of know what temperatures are appropriate. I can say, like if I'm working on a MacBook, 90% of the time I'm at 430 degrees Celsius, 120 airflow on a quick 861W. Sometimes I lower the airflow. If I'm reballing a chip, I'm normally at like 345C. If I was working on a foam board, I would definitely not go over 340C on basically anything. It's a much smaller board. If you have a smaller board with less thermal mass, you're going to be, you need less temperature to heat up the thing and melt the solder. If I'm on like a game console board doing an HDMI port, I crank my hot air station to maximum airflow. I take off the nozzle, 500C, 120 airflow to get that thing off because the board's so thick and it absorbs so much heat. If you're stencils, for example, like you should just look up stencil for the machine you're working on, just like anything. Just Google search what you're looking for. If you don't know that, you can just Google search for a stencil off the model. That's all well and good. Everyone has to start from somewhere, but that's fairly like beginner stages. I hope you're not messing with customers' devices. If you're asking those things, if it's your own stuff, go for it, go to town. You might mess it up, but that's okay. It's a good way to learn. One of the best ways is to make mistakes. So, if you can learn from them afterwards. Hot air settings and stuff like, it's just something you need to be comfortable with. It's like playing in a band and like having a sense of rhythm or something like that, different people use different temperatures and airflow. I think when I was starting, I probably just used lower temperatures generally because I wasn't sure if I was going to damage stuff. Now I'm pretty used to the motion, so I could get away with using higher airflow. If you're like just starting, I'd maybe heat stuff up a little bit slower, go a little bit lower temperature, that sort of thing. But just generically, that's I said earlier those are basically the temperatures I use. If I'm cleaning flux, 140 to 160 Celsius max airflow, just a alcohol, Q-tip it off. Stencils, I have a bunch of different stencils. You could get, a universal stencil like this. If you just searched, universal BGA stencil, that's what this is. This will fit 99% of the stuff you need to reball. And then there's a few sort of specific kind of stencils you might use, like this sort of thing, like this is, I don't know, some Mac stencil for an A1706, A1707 that has some kind of like, weird spacing chips, like a few of these that have kind of goofy layouts for balls. I have hundreds of stencils in here. I really only use like 4 or 5 of them for most of the stuff I'm doing. So I'm getting a lot more, M1 machines now, so I have a stencil for like M1 boards and some of these for the older T2 Intel MacBooks, and then I have this universal stencil. That's pretty much it. This is all Googleable though, so if you have the question, you must practice, because it's probably a question you shouldn't be asking if you're working on stuff for other people, I hope. And I get so many things in here that have been just absolutely either ruined or made very unnecessarily complicated to figure out because someone was working on it before me who really didn't know what they're doing. And even that, it's not like I'm like the arbiter of truth on these. There's a lot of people who know a lot more about this stuff than me. And in fact, probably a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I think I'm a lot smarter than I am. But you know, in any case, I'm pretty good at fixing these because I get stuff that's gone to 4 or 5 other places and they had no clue what they were doing. And it's something that, you know, I could have figured out in 10 or 15 minutes if it was not molested by someone before me. And that bums me out to see. So hopefully this prevents that to some extent, even on a single device. You know, I'll probably get another comment on the next thing I upload on a board repair for what stencil I'm using and what airflow I'm using, and I will not answer it. That's it. I'm done answering those. I've already answered it a few times though in other comments, and these truths should be self-evident if you're at a stage where you're working on stuff for people professionally. Hopefully this information is helpful to someone. Certainly a lot of people ask about it, so I hope it'll help someone. I have many MacBook circuits, including this one right in front of me. I have a lot of videos I need to edit and upload. I probably have somewhere like 10 or 15 recordings of board repairs that I just haven't gone through and edited the content. We've been kind of busy, so but I'll probably find some time in the next week or so and make some stuff. We'll see you in the next repair video. Hopefully that answers everyone's airflow and stencil questions. Have a great day.